Hey everybody, welcome to the 10K Project. We are the largest community of Black investors who actively fund Black-owned businesses. The minimum investment is $100, and the thought behind us is simple. If 10,000 of us came together, for example, and just put in just $100 each into funding a business, that's $1 million. We can start funding our own businesses. We can profit from our own innovation. We can create jobs in the community, and we can work together to build Black wealth. I know we're a bit late today. We're so sorry, but we are here now, and we have an excellent broadcast for you today. Don't forget to put your city and state in the chat. Everybody, please thumbs up the video. Please like, please subscribe, please share with every entrepreneur, every person that wants to be an entrepreneur, every person who cares about the Black community, because we are talking about $60 billion that have been pledged to Black America, and how we can access these funds, how we can access other funds that are available to us. I've got a great guest with me here today, and that is Lyneir Richardson of Rutgers. Is it Rutgers University?
Yep, Rutgers Business School, yes.
Rutgers Business School. So hello, Dr. Richardson.
Good morning.
I'm sorry, not Dr. Richardson. I'm sorry, Attorney Richardson.
Good morning. It's my pleasure. Yes, it's my pleasure to be here.
Hey, Wayne from Woodbridge, Virginia. Good to see you. Everybody put your city and state in the chat. Let us know where you're coming from. So y'all know I do not do these types of broadcasts on a Sunday. I'm usually doing my fingernails and toenails and all of that. But Lyneir is like, I could do it on Sunday. And I'm like, this topic is too important. I've been wanting to do this topic forever. I just didn't have the time to do all the research. And when I met Lyneir and he said he had the survey that he was doing, and I saw the survey, I'm like, perfect timing. So hello, Hadassah from Washington. Oh, you were up early. So glad to see you here today. Everybody, again, put your city and state in the chat so we can recognize you, know where you're coming from. Don't forget to share. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channels, etc., etc. So why don't you tell everyone, first of all, a little bit about yourself and how you decided to really investigate this whole idea of the $60 billion that was pledged to us because of the unfortunate events with Mr. Floyd, and, walk us through your background and how you came to be where you are today.
No, absolutely. So again, I'm Lyneir Richardson. I have two roles, but one goal, which is, trying to get capital and strengthen communities of color. I lead the Rutgers Center for Urban Entrepreneurship and Economic Development. I'm a full-time faculty member at Rutgers Business School. I teach in the MBA program a class called Urban Entrepreneurship and Economic Development. And it's all about how to see business opportunities in our communities, to see investment opportunities, to solve social problems with business solutions. At the same time, I run a social enterprise that's raised now over $18 million to invest in real estate projects in communities of color. And I'm really excited about the fact that we now have 139 Black local small impact investors who own shopping centers with us. We own 4 commercial shopping centers. Let me spend a quick minute on the survey. Last year, we all know was a year of pandemic, of protest, and a political pandemonium. It was the RPPP, right? And what I started to really hone in on the fact was there were all of these new announcements around racial justice, closing the racial wealth gap, creating generational wealth opportunities. And it hit me one morning like a divine inspiration that it's clear wealth is created by owning assets that generate revenue, hopefully have tax advantages, and assets that we all believe can appreciate over time. And so if we really are going to close the racial wealth gap and have intergenerational wealth transfers, we got to help more people of color, more Black folks, own assets, businesses, real estate, stock, either as the entrepreneur, as the investor, as the owner, as the co-owner. And so all of my work from that point on has really focused on How do we help more people of color own assets that appreciate over time and generate revenue? Um, I started seeing all these articles that were compiling the aggregate amount of the corporate commitments to racial justice pledges. Now, all of that obviously wasn't about getting money to Black businesses, but I just wanted
Yeah,
to
it was a
hone
lot
in
of
on
black and brown in there when I did my research. It was a lot of black and brown.
Black and brown. It was, diversity and inclusion is diversifying board, is investing in employee, retention. All it's investing in civil rights organizations. It's, providing money to HBCUs. Is investing in Black-owned banks. All laudable objectives. But again, my focus is on helping Black-owned businesses get capital and help people of color own assets that generate revenue and appreciate over time. And so I just had a simple question in my head. So, I saw a list somewhere that there was $60 billion of over $60 billion of announced pledges to racial justice initiatives. Now, JP Morgan Chase probably made one of the biggest announcements. It was like $30 billion. So again, applaud JP Morgan Chase. $30 billion of commitment. And I started wondering, well, look, do I know, first of all, how many people really know about those pledges? B, do we believe the corporations will actually get capital to Black-owned businesses, not civil rights organization, not social mission, not HBCUs, all of which is good, but will any part, 1 billion, 2 billion, 6 billion, some portion of that 60 billion get to Black businesses? And then finally, does anybody know anybody Black that actually got capital? Right. So my objective is, so I said, well, how do I determine this? And people wanted to call the diversity and inclusion officer, or or go out in front of Google and start up, a protest. And my thought, I want to figure out a way to facilitate a conversation. And so my survey is so simple. It asked 3 questions. I really picked 30 companies out of that list of all those macro pledges. And I just said, do you know about their pledges? Do you believe they'll get capital to Black entrepreneurs? Do you know anybody Black? Do you know any Black entrepreneur that got capital? It's a 3-question survey. We're now at about 500 people who've completed the survey. We really, to be quote unquote statistically significant, we need to get as close as we can to 1,000. So I'm making a big push to get more people just to answer the survey, so that we have a statistically significant survey completion size. But then my hope is that once the survey is done, that there are going to be some companies that people are going to know about their pledge. They're going to believe they've gotten capital, will get capital people, and they're going to know somebody who got the capital. And so we're going to applaud them. And invariably, there's going to be some company that nobody knew, nobody believes, nobody knows. And my hope is that we'll be able to have a conversation with the people who are exemplary. And at the same time, the people who, seem to not have had any result, to invite them to a discussion with us, to invite them to a 10K project discussion, right? To say, hey, what are you doing? Oh, we're doing this. Nobody knew. And we're interested in learning about more opportunities to support entrepreneurs. That's the goal, to facilitate a conversation, make a connection between big corporate and, the entrepreneur who's trying to raise capital, to buy a business, to buy a piece of real estate, to, get this technology startup to grow. That's the goal.
And
Thank you.
sorry. So I, of course, love what you are doing here with the survey, because, as many of you know in the audience, I am a business plan writer. I've been one for a decade now. And most people come to me because they are looking for funding from banks or angel investors. However, the reason we started the 10K project was because my people from other ethnicities were able to get the funding from the rich uncle, I will just call it. And the rich uncle could be anybody, it could be an aunt, it could be the frat brother that they went to college with, etc. But the people in our community, unless they had a rich uncle version of their own, they were really struggling. So, this is how the 10K project got started, because we were like, can change come from the ground up? Can large numbers of us get together in order to help fund these companies? But I will tell you this, and everybody accidentally put the wrong the wrong link in here for the survey, so I'm going to fix it in a second. One, well, I'll tell the name of the company. SoftBank, for example, has a fund available as well, and they're not even on your list. So $60 billion may even be low, because SoftBank is, I think they're doing $100 million. They started off with a $50 million fund. They're doing $100 million now. I had somebody call me and specifically say, I want to go after that money. I think a lot of times, and I love my people, but let's have a real conversation. I think a lot of times we don't have a great strategy for going after this money. It's just like having a strategy for getting government contracts, or having a strategy for some of the other set-asides that are out there for us. Sometimes we don't have the best strategy. I do want to go into that, but I also want to just show another. I'm trying to figure out how to get this thing to show. Call it here. Show on the screen. I hope everyone can see this. There is a cost to racism in this country and racial inequality when it comes to the U.S. economy. It's costing about $16 trillion to the U.S. economy because of discrimination. This is what a bank says. Not sure what banks. And this is against just Black people. Now a major bank has a price tag on how much the economy has lost as a result of discrimination against African Americans is $16 trillion. That's according to Citigroup here. What I want to have people know is that this $60 billion pledge is not just from benevolence, and that's okay, because we can use that too. When we are able to get people to understand that investing in our companies helps the economy overall, helps their businesses overall, that is part of commerce as well. That is part of us being able to zero in on, hey, these are where the funds are that I qualify the most for, and here's how I'm going to actually frame myself so that I can access those funds. Lyneir, what are your thoughts with regards to what I just said?
So I agree 100%. And, that Citigroup study is really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
It also says that if Black businesses were funded, at a proportionate level, that it would mean a $5 trillion increase in our, country's economic productivity over the next 5 years. So this is, we've heard diversity. There's a strategic case to be made for diversity, that companies that have diverse employees and diverse senior leadership and diverse board of directors are more productive, more profitable. But this is about our country. And, obviously we've all read the statistics as well, that, over the next decade, the United States will, the population will increasingly become, the predominant population will be people of color, right? So it's, majority, minority, whatever that means, but people of color will be the dominant population. And in that instance, finding a way to make people of color fully engaged in the economic productivity of our country is just a mandate. It's just economically intelligent. And so, the thought of getting capital to entrepreneurs and, making the case for capital is one bucket. The second bucket, as you alluded to, is this thought of, how do we get our entrepreneurs, investment ready. Um, um, and we've done some stuff on crowdfunding. crowdfunding platform ready, right? Because they'll see these announcements and say, well, I want some of that Facebook money, or I want some of the Google money. And it's, we spend a lot of time on helping the entrepreneurs make the case for capital. I always say there's a narrative portion of it and there's the numbers, right? Here's what we're trying to do. Here's the background. Here's the social impact of what we do. Here's my entrepreneurial story. Here's the market that we're trying to address. Here's why our product or service is good and superior. And here's how we will make a profit. The narrative. But then as soon as you get past the narrative, there's always someone, and justifiably, that says, all right, let me see the numbers. Let me see the business model. How much does it cost? How much will you sell it for? What's your net operating income? How long will it take you to get to profitability? What's the return on my investment? When will I be able to exit? Right? Can you get bank capital? Is venture capital the best capital to get? And so there's a whole lot of questions related to both finance. So I always we're talking about equity, but not equity just in fairness, but equity in finance, and helping our community be appropriately positioned to get capital from Citibank or JP Morgan Chase or SoftBank. In many instances, it's not just about the narrative and the social impact. It's about, do I believe this business has a high probability of success? Will they be able to return capital, whether it's just repay a bank loan, whether it's, can they accept private equity capital and be able to meet the return thresholds? All of that is baked into this conversation.
Yeah. So it's interesting that you say that. I'm working with this client that's going after some SoftBank money. And when we had our first meeting, the team and I said, okay, tell me why SoftBank should invest in your business. And unfortunately, the reasoning was very our company focused instead of SoftBank focused. One of the things, and this is a good time, everybody, for you to get your pens and papers out, because we're going to be dropping some real information for you here. One of the things is that every person you approach for money has a reason that they are investing. Some people are investing just for pure profit. Some people, for example, within the 10K project, are investing because they love Black businesses and they don't necessarily care as much about the return on investment. They just care that you're a Black business and you're going to do something extraordinary, right? Other people will care about the return on investment and less about you being Black. Well, these companies are the same way, right? What Lyneir was talking about with regards to being able to answer the financial questions. As a business plan writer who has a finance degree and really understands the numbers, I can tell you that that is the number one issue that people have. And it is unfortunately the number one complaint that people with money who would be willing to give you money have as well, is that you don't know your numbers and you can't accurately address their financial questions, or you cannot accurately address their risk concerns, because businesses have certain risks that are out there, or you can't identify like a real target market, where you say, well, everyone has skin, so everyone's our target market. Like, no, you really are looking for a specific target market, telling your story in a way that is engaging, telling them why your company fits into their portfolio. So we looked, for example, at SoftBank, we looked at the other companies that they invested in, and we said, well, what's the common theme amongst these other companies? So what I'm trying to say is, if you believe, if I believe that you're just going to walk in and say, I'm Black, give me money, that's not the way it's going to work. There's going to be a lot of research that you need to do thus really zeroing in, I believe, on 2 to 4 programs that you feel like these are the best programs. They're most aligned with what our company is doing. And we have the best business case for those specific companies investing in us or funding us. So, Lyneir, what are your thoughts with regards to that?
So agree with that. Again, the strategy of making the case for capital. Um, I think it starts with the analysis of the capital provider. There's a what I'm focused on right now is there's a spectrum. There is from grant capital to angel investment capital
Mm-hmm.
to there's philanthropically motivated impact investors. There are angel investors of all type, from folks who are doing investment crowdfunding to donation crowdfunding to debt-based crowdfunding. There's our traditional banks. There's mezzanine lenders. There's venture capital. There's private equity. There's opportunity along the spectrum. And starting out, um, you I think the first step is to determine who is most suitable uh, for me to make the case, given the stage that I am in my business and given my own business objectives, which is the appropriate capital and who is most likely to respond, to the business proposition, that I'm putting forward, or who's likely to understand the nuances of my business to, again, that my story of my numbers and my narrative will resonate with best. So I'll give you an example. The coolest thing I think that one of the cooler things that are coming out of these macro pledges is that I am seeing more uh, uh, large investors agreeing to start and invest in Black investment managers, emerging manager programs, Black private equity funds, right? However, many of those funds are still seeking, as they should, they raise 10, 50, $100 million of capital. And to that business model is we have to get a preferred return. We have to get at least a 14 or 15 or 20% internal rate of return. We have to, deploy the capital and get the capital back within 7 to 10 years. And in some instances, if you're running a local neighborhood-based community development company, that's not the capital you want, and it's going to be
Mm-hmm.
hard to make the
Right.
case for that type of capital, right? If you're not a startup that has high growth potential, even in some instances, the angel investment capital is not. Angel investors are saying, I'm in believing because I believe they're growth oriented companies that are led by people of color that, people don't see. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm going to see them, and I'm going to hope I see the next high growth company and invest my 1,000 or 10,000 or $50,000 in and get a 15 or 20% outside return. That's angel. But there's also a slug of capital that is more, community oriented. The CDFI is lender based capital. Foundations are now have various programs related to um, forgivable loans, recoverable grants. I'm seeing more of that. Government programs that are grant programs to help Main Street businesses keep neighborhoods, more vibrant and help businesses stay open and survive and recover. We've run a couple of those programs. And so those you don't have to go in making the case that we're going to be the next, unicorn.
Google. Yeah.
Yeah, you're making the case that we all of our social mission, we're making our neighborhood stronger. We're providing fresh food. We're providing a gathering place in our coffee and co-working shop. We're employing local people. We're supporting the local little league team. If you can make the arguments in those ways, there's some opportunity for, I call it friendlier capital. That's
Mm-hmm.
that mission oriented capital. And again, there's no better or worse. It's here's my strategy. I'm not trying to be Google. I want to operate my coffee shop, and because of COVID, I, had to find new ways of generating revenue, and I need capital. But people recognize the business as someplace that's special. It's where we go on Saturday morning for breakfast, or it's the barbershop that's been open forever that we want to help them pivot, or it's the carry out restaurant that people love. All of that's part of community. And I believe there's capital, there's a case to be made for each type of business in order to attract capital. And so, your work, my work at Rutgers, and there's so many other people doing this work as a sort of trusted advisor and an educator, and even an intermediary, is around how do we understand the business proposition you make? How do we put together the case, the narrative? But then also, how do we put together the economic proposition that says, even if I gave you this capital as a low cost loan, even as a grant, you got to show me that you are going to be able to stay open,
Hmm.
survive, thrive, recover, right? Whether I want my capital back or I just want to make sure I'm not throwing good money into a situation that won't have an impact, and the business still will be, won't open, or will be closed in a short period of time. We want to put our money where we all believe will have the highest probability of success, whether that means just staying open, continuing to be vibrant, or becoming the next unicorn.
Right. So Black Facts asks a very good question here. What type of company or professionals help a company assess the best fit? We wasted a bunch of time, folks, talking about VC when we are not a good fit. So do you have a specific consulting practice where someone can come to you and say, this is the type of company we have, and you direct them in the right place?
So I tell people all along that they're based on where you are. I really do believe there are local investment advisors, consultants. Um, there's university-based programs. There's typically some local economic development organization. At its base case, there's the small business development centers, the SBDCs, those type of programs. I lead a center in New Jersey at Rutgers Business School, the Center for Urban Entrepreneurship and Economic Development. We've helped now about 600 entrepreneurs, 70% of which are people of color, and 40%, 60% are women. 40% are right in around Newark, New Jersey, where our office is headquartered. But our real focus is helping people of color get to $1 million a year of annual recurring revenue. We like that $1 million threshold. It's not the end all be all. $1 million company is not what it was 50 years ago. But for us, it's a threshold. It's where a
Mhm.
business is viable. There's some customers. Hopefully, there's some compensation for the owner. Maybe they can hire one or two or more people. It's the first time businesses can really talk to bank and outside capital, right? So that we now have about 250, 260 companies that are generating more than $1 million a year revenue. And my personal goal is to get to 1,000 of them. And I always tell people 1,000 times a million is a billion. So could our little center have $1 billion of economic impact in our region, right?
Mhm.
So what I suggest to people is you have to find your advisory services at 10K Project. There's local advisors all around in every market. It really is, how do you think about what am I trying to do? Am I trying to get capital to keep my small consumer facing business open, lifestyle type of business open? And don't let people judge you, right? A lifestyle business, again, my father owned a bar and has owned it and operated for 43 years. We lived above the bar the first 5 or 7 years that it was open. That bar put my brother and I through college. It bought us houses. It has my kids. It changed our trajectory. So some
Mhm.
people, that little small business, that small business, we own the building, we refinanced the building, we started new businesses from that building. So, there's a place, right? There are people who start consultancies after they've been laid off, right? Entrepreneurs are by necessity, I call them, right? Not by
Mhm.
choice. That, all right, I've been laid off. I got to find a way to make money. So if you start a consultancy and you're trying to figure out how to get clients, how to get capital to bridge you between payments from those clients, that's a legitimate business. Can you generate 100 or 200 or $500,000 a year in revenue to support your family? That's and to be an economic contributor in your community. All that stuff is relevant and necessary. So you don't have to, if your ambition is to be the next unicorn, Uber or Google or pick Richie Ludenis. There's no that's great. That my mother used to say, not better or worse, it's different. So, if you have a technology startup and you're trying to grow, there's places to go for resources, for pitch competitions, for accelerator programs that only invest in tech startups and ultimately can, help you get the high growth capital that you need to scale. But the first start is like to this question is, where do I go so I don't mess around going to high tech accelerators and they're turning their nose up. They're making me feel bad. You just want to run a restaurant, right? And it's like, well, I want to run a restaurant because that's where my passion is, and I want to create a business that can support my family and support the life that I want to live. And everybody gets to make their choice about how they live and how they do business and their ambitions, right? In our country.
Yeah, so just to reiterate, so there are small business development centers across the country. Every city, every town has one. So you can Google small business development center and near me, and you're able to find somebody if you want to go and sit down. There's also SCORE. Don't ask me what SCORE stands for. Retired executives. I know it's like the RE.
Service Corps
But
of Retired Executives. Yes, Service Corps
yes,
Retired
so
Executives.
that's also run by the SBA, and there are people within SCORE who are financial experts who can sit down with you, talk with you about what your business is, where it's headed, and okay, based on what you're telling me, you would do best looking at this type of funding. Also, depending on the type of funding that you're looking for, there are, for example, there are, well, say it this way. I'm going to say it this way. Banks, if you decide to go to a bank and you decide to put an application in, there are certain things that they cannot say to you, certain guidance that they cannot give to you, that they would give to someone like me or someone like Lyneir, because we're not asking them for any money. Sometimes you may go to a bank and it may not just be that your credit is not the best. It may be other issues as well, ratios, certain ratios that they're looking for within your business and your financial forecast, etc. What I'm going to say to you is no matter where you decide to go for funding, learn the game. Learn the game. Sometimes it is racism. I had a conversation with a great entrepreneur that's already making revenues. And he went to a VC office and they told him, we've never seen a Black person do this before. They had funded another business that was majority owned, but they refused to fund his business. And he says, Cherie, the only difference between my business and this other person's business was this. So we're not saying that this doesn't affect anything whatsoever. You will have to talk to more people, right? Because especially in these VC spaces, nobody wants to be a pioneer, unfortunately. So they think, oh, we've never seen Black people do this before. We don't want to be the first, even though some of those walls are starting to come down, because we have Calendly, for example, that has done it, and that is a Black owned business. What I'm trying to say is really take the time. First of all, like Lyneir said, know who you are targeting. And then number two, after that, then learn what they're looking for. Number three, don't be afraid to pay the right person to give you the inside game. I'm going to say that as well. I do want to show the survey itself, and I want us to go through.
Thank you.
Yeah. I want us to go through the survey. So for everyone who just came on, because we had a whole bunch of people who just came on. So first of all, thank you for coming on this Sunday. Please like the video. Please subscribe to the channels. Please share it with a friend or two. This is open information that we have here. And Lyneir, tell everyone again, give us a recap of what the survey is, why you decided to do it, and then we're going to go through the survey as well.
Yeah, the survey is, we called it very simple. You see this old school name, keeping it real, simple perception survey. The goal was there were There's been over $60 billion or more plus of announced pledges to racial justice investing to support after George Floyd's, the civil unrest following George Floyd's murder last year. The survey basically asked three questions. Are you aware of these macro commitments that have been made by these corporations? Do you believe that they will get capital to entrepreneurs? That's awareness. And then finally, do you know any Black company that received any capital? Right. Those are the three questions. We then listed companies that just that were on that list that we knew had made pledges. This is not an exhaustive list. We took some in financial services, we took some in tech, we took some in just general other companies, right? So again, this is not meant to be the perfect survey. It was entrepreneurial ingenuity. Let's get the conversation started. And our hope is, we're trying to get 1,000 people to complete the survey. We're about at 500 or 600 now. So encouraging you to complete it, please, and share it. Because the thought is, once we have about 1,000 people, we have a statistically significant survey size that will allow us to publish the results and ultimately to start a conversation between the corporations that have made these announcements and the community, us, right, who are seeing these announcements and trying to figure out how to get more capital to businesses of color. So please complete the survey. The thought is there'll be some people that will be exemplary, that, hey, everybody knew about them. They believe they will get capital, and they actually know someone who's gotten capital from Google. Google just had a big announcement last week, that kind of thing. And there'll be some other companies, where no one knows that they even had a pledge. They don't believe it. And the goal is the good people we'll talk to and say, why, how, what's your advice for other companies? And the folks that show up that nobody believes is not fact. Here's what we perceive, right? This is what we believe. And maybe change that belief or work with us so that we can help you get more capital to business initiatives. And again, that's the goal.
So we're encouraging everybody to please complete the survey. I'm going to put it back in the chat again for everybody to please complete the survey. It's the Rutgers.ca1 here.
And so it's also on my LinkedIn. So if anybody, I'll put my LinkedIn chat there as well. And
okay, yeah. So
LinkedIn, it's a long,
there
link.
You go. You can also go to Lyneir's LinkedIn as well. So I did want to pull it up again and have you tell people about a couple of the programs here that maybe you thought were pretty interesting. So we have a lot of the banks here: JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Citigroup. The Goldman Sachs, in my purview, was like one of the biggest ones because, my goodness, the firestorm it caused. Because it was targeting, Black women specifically. But which of these, is there something in here where you're like, this is a program that I think is super interesting, that people should maybe pay closer attention to?
Yeah, so, look, a lot of the banks have a Community Reinvestment Act mandate. And so, and over the time, a lot of them I know have been supportive of Black entrepreneurship, of community development initiatives, PNC Bank, JP Morgan Chase, right? So again, these are folks that I am aware, Santander Bank, that have actually made investments in community, Capital One. By contrast, we know, Wells Fargo, has always been in the paper, but I know they made macro announcements. And I just want to know any Black entrepreneur that can say, you know what, I benefited from a Wells Fargo program, Wells Fargo investment directly, right? So, that's the type of questions that we're asking ourselves. The Google announcement last week, right? Facebook did a grant program during the heart of COVID. Uber during the heart of COVID COVID made delivery free, no Uber charges from Black-owned restaurants, right? So again, this is not meant to be nobody's done anything. This is to really learn more about what people are doing. And if you
Hmm.
just Google any of these names and racial justice, you'll see what they've announced. Again, some have been, we're supporting Black-owned banks, we're putting money into Black-led CDFIs, we're helping more people of color go to HBCUs, right? But again, my little narrow focus is any of this money making it to Black owned businesses or
Hmm.
Black business initiatives? I believe if you invest in our businesses, that we can do our own charity in some, so it's not, everything shouldn't be just about a donation to charity. Not that that's not important and not needed, but there's, if we invest in Black led companies, we invest in Black owned enterprises, that will start to see the ripple effects of the economic development outcomes. We know factually Black owned businesses hire more Black employees. We know factually that Black entrepreneurs have, I think it was a 12x, 12 times the net worth of entrepreneurs, right?
Hmm.
Black entrepreneurs have traditionally invested in everything from civil rights, the early Martin Luther King,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so I mean, those things are factual. So
Hmm.
there's a clarion call to get more capital to Black owned businesses and Black business initiatives. That's my
Yeah.
focus.
So the reason I had those up there for everybody is so that you could really start doing your research, seeing what's out there. Also, please take Lyneir's survey, because this is so important for him to get 1,000 people plus. We'd like to see it be 10,000 people so that he can get a real look at, do you know about these programs? I have to admit, I had heard about the pledges. Like, I had heard that there's, billions of dollars out there, but I'm going to use Lyneir's survey to start digging into, okay, well, what is Walmart doing? I didn't see Target on there, but I do know about the Target pledge to have 15% of its shelf space for Black entrepreneurs. And I have to admit, I'm starting to see that. I'm starting to see a lot more Black owned products on the Target spaces, on the Target shelf, sorry. Um, so, what are we able to take advantage of? Because I believe that this is an opportunity for us to fight against the zero wealth by 2053, if not sooner, issue. There was a famous, well, I don't know if famous, but a report that was done by McKinsey in 2019 that said that 4.5 million Black people are set to lose their jobs by 2030 due to automation. What are we going to do about that? We need to invest in businesses. We need to focus on entrepreneurship. We need to focus on skilling up as a people as well. Let's say you do not necessarily want to start a business, because business entrepreneurship is not for everybody. Could you take some of this money and go back and get like a specific degree that could lead you to $150,000, $200,000 job? Could you take some of this money, and let's say you have a sophomore in high school right now, and get them a scholarship so that they are not burdened with student loans? I think we need to really start thinking. Entrepreneurship is one thing, but what can we do outside the box? Let's say you're a great operations person. You do not necessarily want to start the business, but if somebody has a great idea, you could help them access these funds in exchange for partial equity in the business, or giving you a job once they get the funding, etc. Now we're starting to play the game better, and we're starting to think in terms of, Erica Williams uses a term, super teams. I want to see us start creating super teams as well. Too many of us want to do this thing solo, but wealth building is a team sport. And that's one of the things that our counterparts know, that we we may know instinctively, but we're not really acting on it in a way that's super strategic. Now, I am not the girl that says bring everybody with you. And Tawana hates it when I say that, but so you may have to leave some people behind, perfectly understand. But I do think there are 700,000 to a million of us that if we got together and we really started thinking strategically, starting businesses, growing businesses, buying businesses, training up our people, figuring out what we're going to do with the murder rates in Chicago and Detroit and places like that. How do we get our young men, our young boys, first of all, to know how to read at grade level? The young girls too. I know that that's an issue. How do we get them trained in the trades and all of that? I think there's enough of us that if we came together and leverage some of this money, we can turn this ship around so much that we can go to like, you know.
And let me chime in on that because I really
Yeah,
believe
go ahead. And I want to say to a woman, Luana, I think, yeah, Luana, I see your question and I will answer it. So I hope you're still here. I do see your question, but go ahead, Lyneir.
and I'll do 30 seconds. I don't want to miss the opportunity to give a shout out to the 10K project. I mean, literally investing as well, right? So $100, $1,000, investment. If we're not entrepreneurial ourselves, finding ways to support entrepreneurs with investment and with patronage, right? When a Black-owned business open up, make the extra effort to be supportive of them. But then two, you're even in entrepreneurship. I have this idea. I started and stopped 50 times around a book, which I call NEED, which is Next Economy, Entrepreneurship, and Economic Development. So, it's understanding the growth sectors in our country, in our economy, whether that's, green energy or, health or tech or, financial services. You just go down there, drones and artificial intelligence. And I am really focused on helping people of color, think about how do I start or how do I align my business with the growth sector of our economy, right? So I always use the crazy example of, I see a lot of people starting restaurants and bakeries. They have, somebody's great recipe. But I'm like, well, cannabis is a growing industry. Put some cannabis in those cupcakes, right? Just a lot. I'm an event planner. Well, let's plan events in a growth sector and health or, green energy or cannabis, right? So it's how do you identify where the economy is growing and come up with business strategies that position Black people to lead that growth, to participate in that growth, to own that growth, not just to be, sort of, left to, what's left there, right? And we're left to only the quote unquote old economy. In your auto repair shop, can you start to do something related to autonomous vehicles or drones? The same, skills of repairing, could be aligned with where the economy is growing. So I just wanted to add those two things to your comment.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so all of those things are so important. I want to thank Raphael and Carl and Antoine in the chat here for, putting in things like utility infrastructure and entrepreneurship and skilling up for sure. Technical writing, proposal writing is so important. Because I'm a business plan writer, people will ask me about proposal writing all the time. It is not something that I want to do personally, but there's a lot of money in proposal writing. There's a lot of money in business development, sales. Sales is a skill. And the top 10% of salespeople can make $500,000 plus a year, especially if you get in the right organizations. So now we're able to leverage some of this money in order to get these skills and get access to these places where we are able to bring those types of incomes to our family or to start those types of businesses. So Antoine is doing some great work as well with his BSC Enterprises, and Antoine will be in touch this week as well. I know I have something for you. So I wanted to come back to Luana's question here. When money is invested in the 10K project, how are the funds accessible to Black businesses? Okay, and actually I'm going to show this here. I'm learning how to use my Restream, everybody. So thank you so much for your patience here. So that's a great question. Okay, so the 10K project does not directly invest in businesses. When you become a member of the 10K project, you pay a one-time fee of $100, and that is just your membership. Okay. Then what happens is every Tuesday at 8 p.m., we have something called a Bet on Black pitch. And the people who come in, the entrepreneurs who come in, are doing something called equity crowdfunding, which is governed by the Securities and Exchange Commission and FINRA. So they basically have to go through a process and go through something called a crowdfunding portal, which is also approved by the SEC and FINRA. And the what's called a transfer agent has an escrow account where you actually, if you're going to invest in a Black business, it just like the 10K project never touches that money. So let's say Lyneir comes and he does a Bet on Black pitch. And you, Luana, decide that you want to invest in Lyneir's company. The 10K project never touches that money. So Lyneir will do his pitch. You do your research. You say, hey, you know what? I like Lyneir's company. I want to invest in that company. You go directly to the crowdfunding portal. WeFunder, Republic, Buy the Block, wherever the portal is, and you put your money directly into that campaign. And then Lyneir basically, it takes time for Lyneir to raise the money. And then once that money is raised, the escrow account will cut Lyneir a check based on the amount of money that is raised. So the 10K project never touches the entrepreneur's money at all. That's a great question that you have asked. Tawana is infinitely better at explaining the nuts and bolts of the process from the crowdfunding portal's point of view, but I just want to let everybody know that. We also are here to help you discover some of the best Black businesses so that you are able to build a portfolio. So angel investors, which is what we are, they build portfolios of businesses that they have an interest in, that they have shares in. So every week, as you're listening to these Bet on Black pitches, you're able to then say, hey, you know, this year I've invested in 10 businesses, 12 businesses, 20 businesses, however many that you have. And the sweet spot for like a minimum is 25 businesses in your portfolio. That's been statistically proven. But 100 businesses is like where you really get like the ball rolling within angel investing. So we're not doing that for self-serving purposes, because quite frankly, you pay your one-time membership to the 10K project, and you know we're not getting any additional money from that. This is a labor of love for us. So, but we want to see more Black businesses win, and we want to see more of us as angel investors profit from our innovation, because the $60 billion pledge ultimately helps the $60 billion companies. The question is, what can we do to help ourselves as well and profit from our own innovation as well? And that can be done through the 10K project. So again, I just want to show everybody the survey. And we have some new people that came on, Lyneir. So just tell everybody again a little bit about the survey, how you came up with it, and what you're looking to achieve with this survey.
Yes. Am I still on? Yes. Again, very simple survey to determine if we believe the $60 billion of announced commitments to racial justice initiatives will actually make it to Black-owned businesses and Black business initiatives. The survey basically makes three requests for information. Do you know, are you aware of the pledges that have been made? Do you believe the capital will actually make it to, Black entrepreneurs? And do you know a Black entrepreneur that received the capital?
Absolutely.
Yep.
So everybody, we're going to put this back here in the chat as well. We are encouraging everybody to take the survey. We are almost at the end of our time, Lyneir. I did want to give people a couple of other pieces of just tidbits of information. If you're an entrepreneur and you think you want to tap into the $60 billion or help, husband, wife, relative, friend tap into this money. I'm going to tell you a story. One of my favorite stories that I love to tell. I wanted to be on this TV show for many years. It was called Your Business on MSNBC. And for years, probably about 4 years, I'm looking at the TV every week going, boy, I'd love to get on this show. Well, and of course, I was saying that and didn't do anything, right? Just saying it, right? One day, I'm like sick and tired of being sick and tired. I said, okay, I intend to be on this show, Cherie, like get off your butt, do something about it. So I said, well, what can I do? Brainstorming. I said, well, she's active. The host is active on Twitter. Let me just go to Twitter and see if I can get her attention. Well, I DM'd her and I said, and she used to do a lot of speaking engagements. I said, where are you speaking next? I'd love to come and hear you speak live. And she gave me a link to a place that she was speaking. So I click on the link. It's invitation only, and you have to make $2 million a year to get in. I didn't qualify for that, but I emailed them anyway and said, such and such a person who's your speaker suggested that I come. Can I get in? No, I don't make $2 million a year. And I have a point to this story. The first time they sent me a note back saying yes, it went to my spam. I didn't see it. Few weeks later, I'm like, I never got a note back from them. So I emailed them again. The second time, it went to my spam, but I was looking for it. $750 for me to go. They said, yes, you can attend. It's $750. I had the money, but like when you have $1,500 and they want $750, you're like, no, I don't want to go that bad. I had a point to this story, but I said, okay, I'm going to go. So it was $750 to go. Plus I spent another $300 on a train ride to New York. And because I was living in DC at the time. I run from the train station to the place. I have a little bit of sweat glistening on me, and I see this woman. It's before she is going to speak. I run up to her. I have my thing prepared of, hi, I'm Cherie. I'm a big fan of yours. I contacted you on Twitter. Here's a copy of my book because I have a book. I'd love to be on your show. And you know what she said to me, Lyneir?
What's that?
You'll be surprised. I said, I'm sure you get this all the time, people running up to you, asking you to be on your show. She said to me, you'll be surprised how few people ask me. You'll be surprised how few people ask me.
Wow.
This is the point of this. Oh, and there's more to the story. So I said, okay. I said, well, I really want to be on. Ladies and gentlemen, she gave me her NBC Universal email address, not the Gmail address that people give you when they're shoving you to the side. She gave me her producer's NBC Universal email address. And I ended up being on the show. So, long story short, here's the thing. One of the best things that I can suggest to people is, or I have a saying, it's not what you know and it's not who you know, it's who knows you and who's willing to pull strings for you when the time comes. Behind all of these funds, behind all of this money, there are people behind them. Go to any webinar they have and participate. You may need to get on a plane, safety first, obviously, with the virus. Get on a plane and go and visit with people. If they're speaking somewhere, go and actually approach them before they give their presentation and talk to them like, hey, I read all about your fund. I read about this, and I intend to apply. This is my business story. What do you think? You will be surprised how people will navigate and move things for you when they know you.
Make a human connection. Make a human connection every opportunity you can. Yes.
Yeah. And Carl is saying survey check. Thank you so much for doing the survey, Carl.
Thank you,
Yes,
Carl.
everybody, please do the survey. So,
and share it, please. Please, we got to get to 1,000 if we can.
Yes, please share it.
I think we have some family connections in the chat.
We see some family connections. I know, I'm reading this. Like, see some family connections in here. So Lorenzo is asking, are all the companies to be invested in fully vetted? So the SEC does their vetting. Tawana will speak with the entrepreneur, but she does limited vetting. But you are ultimately responsible within the 10K project. You're responsible for doing your own vetting with regards to that. I will say, though, that most entrepreneurs don't want to get in trouble with the SEC because you can go to jail for that. So, that is one of the reasons why we chose the way that we do investing, because there is a layer of protection. But, nothing is 100%. Nothing's 100%. Lyneir, what else do you think? And, we've taken so much of your time today that we'll wrap it up as well.
No, final comments. I mean, again, this is an important moment in time. Hopefully it's not a moment, it's a movement. We've all heard people talk about that. But this focus on getting capital to people of color to scale, to start, to grow businesses and to figure out how to make that case for capital is this is the urgency of that moment right now. Wealth is created by owning assets that generate revenue and appreciate over time. So, helping more people of color, that's how we're going to close the racial wealth gap, helping people own assets, businesses, stock, investing, real estate that, will ideally stay in our community, stay in our families, and be a source of wealth, for the next generation.
Absolutely. Well, we want to thank everybody for being here again on this Sunday morning. Lyneir, you were wonderful. We're encouraging everybody to take the survey. Also, please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. Share it with a friend, 2, 10, 15, 50, however many. And let's get Lyneir to that 1,000+ survey participation that he is looking for so that he can do his statistical analysis. And most importantly, decide to do something. Decide to do something and actually act on it. Thank you, Dr. Amani, saying great presentation. Thank you so much. All right, everybody, the10kproject.com, the10kproject.com, if you want to learn more about what 10K is doing and potentially become a member. Thank you so much, everybody. Tomorrow, we are having a double header with Dr. Cherie Phillips, our economist, is coming at 6 p.m. Eastern, and then Russell Simmons is coming to talk about his NFT collection at 7 p.m. Eastern. So, double header. All right, everybody. Night. Or sorry, bye-bye.